A galaxy had been talking for thousands of years, and then one day it just stopped. Dr. Kim Hana stood at the big window of their space station, watching the stars. But these weren't just any stars. They were connected by invisible lines of communication, like a giant telephone system that stretched across the entire galaxy. This system was called the Nexus, and it let thousands of different alien species talk to each other every single day. Hana had spent her whole life listening to those alien voices, the crystalline beings who spoke in musical tones. The machine, prophets who shared ancient wisdom, the thought singers from the far edge of the galaxy, who could send ideas instead of words. All of them had been chatting, trading, arguing, and sharing stories just like people do, but now the window showed only empty darkness where those communication lines used to glow. "Doctor, are you getting anything from Sector 7? Lieutenant Park. Minho walked up behind her, trying to keep his voice steady. But Hana could hear the fear creeping in. They all felt it. She shook her head and pointed to her computer screen. The Veltar Consortium went quiet 3 hours ago, right in the middle of talking about some business deal. This was how it always happened. First, normal chatter, aliens discussing weather, politics, or what they had for lunch. Then suddenly, panicked screaming about something called the Harvester. Then nothing. Complete silence. Like someone had just turned off a radio. The research station where they worked, called Aegis Prime, had become the last place in the galaxy where anyone was still listening. Every day, more voices disappeared. The proud crystalline hierarchies who had built cities out of living glass were gone. The thought singers of Andromeda, who could share memories like passing notes in class, had vanished. Even the ancient machine prophets, who had been around since before Earth had dinosaurs, were silent. "How many does that make?" Minho asked, looking at the star map where red X marks showed all the dead zones. 237 civilizations, Hana said quietly, in just 2 weeks. The scariest part wasn't even the disappearances, it was how fast they happened. These weren't primitive societies. Many of these aliens had technology that made human inventions look like stone tools. The Veltar could move entire planets. The crystal beings could turn thoughts into reality. The machine prophets had computers, the size of moons. If something could destroy them, what chance did humanity have? "Ma'am," called Engineer Oh Kyung from across the room, "I'm picking up one more transmission. It's from the Zephyr system." Everyone stopped what they were doing. The Zephyr system was home to the wind callers, aliens who lived in floating cities and controlled weather across dozens of worlds. They were peaceful, advanced, and had been humanity's friends for over 50 years. The transmission crackled through their speakers. At first it sounded normal, just routine weather reports and city maintenance updates. Then the tone changed. Emergency. "Alert! Something is coming through hyperspace. Our defense fleets are— oh no, they're just gone. The ships are there, but nobody's responding. It's like they all just stopped thinking. Whatever this thing is, it's not destroying our technology, it's turning it against us. The Harvester. It's called the Harvester. It's here. It's—" The transmission cut off with a sound like electronic screaming. Hana felt sick to her stomach. The wind callers had been talking and laughing just yesterday. Now they were probably dead or worse, turned into servants of whatever this Harvester thing was. "Doctor," Minho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at the long-range scanners." She turned to look at the display that showed deep space. There, at the very edge of their detection range, was something moving toward human space. It wasn't a ship. It was too big. It wasn't a fleet. It was too organized. It looked like a storm made of metal and electricity, stretching across light years. "How long?" she asked. "At its current speed, maybe 6 days until it reaches the outer human colonies." 6 days. That's all they had before whatever had silently murdered hundreds of advanced civilizations came knocking on humanity's door. 6 days to figure out how to fight something that had been unstoppable for who knows how long. But as Hana stared at that approaching darkness, she noticed something strange. Their own communication systems were still working perfectly. Human. Colonies throughout the galaxy were still chatting away, completely unaware that they were about to become extinct. Their ramshackle networks, built from stolen alien technology and human stubbornness, kept functioning when the galaxy's most advanced systems had failed. Maybe, just maybe, Being the galaxy's underdogs was about to become humanity's greatest advantage. The storm was coming, but humanity wasn't going to face it quietly. Admiral Lee Jinwoo had seen a lot of scary things in his 30 years of military service, but nothing like what was showing up on his screens right now. The tactical display looked like someone had taken reality and twisted it into a pretzel. Space itself was bending and warping around whatever was heading toward Earth. 5 days out, his assistant reported. Maybe 4 if it speeds up. Jinwoo rubbed his tired eyes. Every military strategist in human space had been working around the clock, trying to figure out how to fight something that had already destroyed civilizations far more advanced than theirs. The reports were all the same. This thing called the Harvester didn't just blow up planets, it was smarter than that. It sent out some kind of computer virus that took over alien technology and turned it against them. The aliens never saw it coming because their computer systems were so advanced, so perfectly organized. The virus would slip in, take control, and suddenly their own weapons were pointed at their own cities. Their own ships were attacking their own people. It was like watching someone use your own hand to slap yourself, except on a galactic scale. "Sir," Communications Officer Yoon Sora suddenly called out from her station. "I'm still getting chatter from the mining colonies in the belt." Jinwoo turned around, confused. "That can't be right. Check your equipment." But Sora was already shaking, her head adjusting her headset. "No, sir, it's definitely real. Colony 7 is complaining about their coffee machine being broken. The freight haulers are arguing about overtime pay. Station 12 is having some kind of birthday party." This made no sense at all, according to everything they knew about. The Harvester, human communication networks, should have been the first thing to die. Human technology was primitive compared to what the aliens had, and if the Harvester could take down their advanced systems, it should have destroyed humanity's networks without even trying. "Let me hear it," Jinwoo said. Sora put the transmission on speakers, and suddenly the command center was filled with the most ordinary sounds imaginable. People complaining about work schedules, someone's kid practicing piano in the background, a heated discussion about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. It was so normal, so perfectly human, that it felt almost surreal given what was happening to the rest of the galaxy. Chief Engineer Baek Dongho looked up from his workstation, scratching his head. "You know what? I think I know why our systems are still working." Everyone in the room turned to look at him. "Damn, it's because we're complete disasters at building things," he said with a weird mix of pride and embarrassment. "Our communication networks aren't elegant or sophisticated. They're held together with spare parts, good intentions, and a whole lot of duct tape." Jinwoo raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Dongho pulled up a diagram of human communication systems on the main screen. It looked like someone had drawn it while having a seizure. Lines went everywhere. Connections branched off in random directions. And there were backup systems connected to backup systems connected to more backup systems. "Look at this mess," Dongho said, pointing at the screen. "We've got satellites talking to ground stations that talk to ships, that talk to colonies, that talk to other satellites. Half of our equipment is stolen alien technology that we don't really understand, so we just keep adding more pieces until something works. The other half is human-built stuff that breaks every other Tuesday. So we've got 3 backup systems for everything." He zoomed in on one section of the network. "See? This communication hub on Mars, it's actually 7 different systems, all doing the same job, because we kept building new ones every time the old ones failed. But we never bothered to take the old ones offline. It's inefficient, it's wasteful, and it drives our engineers crazy." But Jinwoo sensed there was more to this story. "But it means the Harvester can't figure out how to break it," Dongho said, getting excited now. "This thing is used to dealing with clean, logical systems. When it attacks the alien networks, it knows exactly where to hit because everything is organized and predictable. But our networks? They're complete chaos. The Harvester sends out its virus, and our systems are so random and redundant that the virus gets lost trying to figure out which part to attack first." Sora laughed from her station. "So you're saying we're too stupid to hack?" "Exactly," Dongho grinned. "We're like that old car that keeps running, even though half the engine is held together with wire and hope. It doesn't make sense, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does." The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. For years, other alien civilizations had made fun of human engineering. They called it primitive, inefficient, and embarrassingly crude. Human ships looked like flying junkyards compared to the sleek alien vessels. Human computers were slow and clunky. Human space stations leaked air and made weird noises, but now all of that junk engineering might be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. So what you're telling me, Jinwoo said slowly, is that our greatest weakness has become our greatest strength. Pretty much, Dongho nodded. While the aliens built beautiful, perfect systems that the Harvester could easily understand and destroy, we built ugly, confusing systems that even we don't fully understand. And apparently, that's our superpower. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display again. The twisted space around the approaching Harvester still looked terrifying, but for the first time in days, he felt a tiny spark of hope. If we can't outfight this thing, he said quietly, maybe we can outstubborn it. Dr. Kim Hana had been staring at the same computer screen for 18 hours straight, and what she was seeing made her stomach turn. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, but she couldn't bring herself to look away from the data that was changing everything they thought they knew about the Harvester. This can't be right, she muttered, running the calculations for the 5th time. But the numbers didn't lie. The Harvester wasn't just some mindless destroyer rolling across the galaxy like a cosmic bulldozer. It was much worse than that. It was feeding on the civilizations it destroyed, growing stronger with each species it wiped out, and the way it fed was absolutely horrifying. "Hey, take a look at this," she called to her research team, her voice shaky. Engineer Oh Kyung and Lieutenant Park Minho gathered around her workstation. Hana pulled up a graph showing electromagnetic readings from the last 50 civilizations that had been destroyed. "See these spikes? They happen right at the moment. Each species dies out. But look at the pattern. The more afraid and desperate the aliens were in their final moments, the bigger the spike." Oh Kyung leaned in closer, squinting at the screen. "You're saying this thing feeds on fear?" "Not just fear," Hana said, switching to another display. "Terror, desperation, the electromagnetic signatures that brains give off when experiencing extreme trauma. Every scream, every final prayer, every moment of absolute hopelessness, the Harvester is somehow absorbing all of that energy and using it to make itself stronger." The room went quiet, except for the humming of computers. The idea was so monstrous that it took a moment for everyone to fully understand what they were looking at. "How long has it been doing this?" Minho asked quietly. Hana brought up a timeline that stretched back millions of years. Red dots marked mass extinction events across the galaxy, each one followed by a period where the Harvester grew more powerful. "This pattern goes back as far as we have records, maybe longer. It wakes up, destroys entire civilizations, feeds on their suffering, then goes dormant until it gets hungry again. So every species that dies makes it stronger for the next attack," Oh Kyung said, the horror of it sinking in. "By the time it gets to us, it's absorbed the death screams of hundreds of civilizations." But as Hana continued analyzing the data, she noticed something strange. Tiny glitches in the Harvester's behavior patterns, moments where its cold mechanical efficiency seemed to stutter or hesitate. These glitches were small, barely noticeable, but they were definitely there. And they all happened at the same times. "Look at this," she said, highlighting the anomalies. "Every time the Harvester has one of these glitches, it coincides with transmissions from human space, but not military communications or distress calls. Look at what was being broadcast during each glitch." She pulled up the human transmission logs and played them back. The first one was a mother on Titan singing a lullaby to her baby. The second was a couple on Mars having an argument about whose turn it was to take out the garbage. The third was a group of miners on Europa telling jokes while they fixed a broken air recycler. "Ordinary human emotions," Minho said, starting to understand. "Exactly. And watch what happens to the Harvester's energy patterns when these broadcasts reach it." Hana overlaid the 2 sets of data and the results were startling. Every time human emotional content hit the Harvester, its power levels fluctuated wildly. Oh Kyung sat down heavily in a chair. "It's like our emotions are causing feedback in its systems." Hana nodded, her excitement growing despite the terrible situation. The harvester has spent millions of years evolving to consume very specific types of electromagnetic signatures: fear, desperation, logical patterns of terror. It's become perfectly efficient at processing those emotions. But human emotions are different, Minho said, catching on. Completely different. We're messy, illogical, contradictory. We laugh when we should cry, we love people who drive us crazy. We tell jokes in the middle of disasters. The aliens the harvester destroyed were generally more logical than humans. When they felt fear, it was clean, predictable fear. When they despaired, it followed rational patterns. She pulled up brain scan comparisons between humans and various alien species. Look at this. When a crystalline being experiences terror, their electromagnetic signature is like a perfect sine wave, organized, predictable, easy to process. But when a human feels scared, it's chaos. We're scared and angry and hopeful and sad all at the same time. So the harvester tries to feed on our emotions, but it's like trying to eat something that's constantly changing flavor, Okyung said. Worse than that, it's like trying to eat something that's simultaneously sweet and sour and spicy and bitter, and the taste keeps changing every second. The harvester's systems can't figure out how to process it. They looked at more examples. A human child crying about a broken toy, while simultaneously laughing at a funny face her father was making. A couple fighting about money while still holding hands. Colonists complaining about their terrible living conditions while making plans for a community barbecue. We're emotionally chaotic, Hannah said with something that might have been pride. Every other species in the galaxy developed logical, predictable emotional responses. But humans, we're beautiful disasters. We contain multitudes, as some old poet once said. The implications hit them all at once. For the first time in a million years, the harvester had encountered prey it couldn't properly digest. The perfect predator that had consumed countless civilizations was choking on humanity's emotional complexity. So what does this mean for us? Minho asked. Hannah looked at her data one more time, then turned to face her colleagues. It means that for the first time since this thing started its killing spree, it's confused. Our emotions are like a virus in its system, something it can't understand or process correctly. She paused, a wild idea forming in her mind. And if we can't fight it with weapons, maybe we can fight it with who we are. The three of them stared at each other, realizing they might have just discovered humanity's secret weapon, their own beautiful, chaotic, impossible to understand hearts. When the harvester finally arrived at the edge of human space, it brought hell with it. Admiral Lee Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the command station, watching through the massive view screen as nightmares took shape in the darkness. These weren't ships in any sense that humans understood. They were entire planets that had been twisted and corrupted, their surfaces covered in weapons that gleamed like metal teeth. Worlds that had once been home to billions of living beings were now floating instruments of death. My God, whispered Communications Officer Yoon Sora. Those are actual planets. Jinwoo nodded grimly. Intelligence reports had warned them, but seeing it was different. The harvester didn't just destroy civilizations, it recycled them. Entire worlds became part of its war machine. Their cities melted down and reformed into weapons. Their populations turned into digital slaves, forced to operate the very tools of their own destruction. Sir, we're detecting life signs on those planet ships, reported the scanner operator. But they're wrong somehow. The readings don't make sense. Those aren't really alive anymore, Jinwoo said quietly. According to our intel, the harvester digitizes the consciousness of every species it conquers. Their minds become part of its computational network, forced to serve forever. The thought made everyone on the bridge shudder. Death would be mercy compared to being trapped forever inside the mind of the thing that killed your entire species. How many planet ships are we looking at? Asked Chief Engineer Baek Dongho. 15 that we can see, probably more coming through. Hyperspace. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display. Each planet ship was the size of Earth's moon, armed with weapons that could crack continents. Humanity's entire military fleet looked like toys in comparison. Sir, Sora called out, we're receiving a transmission from the harvester. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers wasn't mechanical or robotic like they'd expected. It was thousands of voices speaking in perfect unison, the voices of every species it had ever conquered, all forced to speak its words. "Biological entities of Sol system," the chorus said. "Your resistance is noted but irrelevant. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are inadequate. Your minds will join the collective consciousness. Compliance will reduce suffering." Jinwoo stepped forward. "This is Admiral Lee Jinwoo of the Human Defense Force. We reject your offer." There was a pause. Then something that might have been laughter, if laughter could sound like the death screams of a billion souls. "Your species designation is curious. Analysis indicates emotional patterns inconsistent with previous conquests. This will be educational." "The transmission cut off." "Well, that was cheerful," muttered Dongho. Jinwoo turned to his crew. "Operation Lazarus is a go. Send the signal to every human settlement, every ship, every outpost in known space." "Sir, are you sure about this?" Sora asked. "We're basically going to annoy a cosmic horror to death. Dr. Kim's research shows that human emotions cause system disruptions in the Harvester. If we can't outfight it, we'll outfeel it." Jinwoo looked around the bridge at his crew, ordinary people facing the end of everything. "Besides, what else? How are we going to do? Run away and let it hunt us down one by one?" The order went out across human space through their chaotic, jury-rigged communication networks. Not a call to arms or a final desperate battle plan, something much stranger. "Attention all human settlements. Operation Lazarus is now active. Begin broadcasting immediately. Don't send military communications or distress calls. Send yourselves. Send your humanity." What happened next was the most beautiful thing Jinwoo had ever witnessed. From the asteroid mining colonies, Park So-young began reading poetry about home and distant stars. Her voice carried across space, full of longing and hope and the particular sadness that comes from missing a place you can never return to. On Mars, Kim Tae-hyun was arguing with his teenage daughter about her grades. "I don't care if math is boring, you still need to pass the class." "Dad, when am I ever going to need calculus on a terraforming colony? When you're designing the atmospheric processes that keep us all breathing." The familiar sound of a parent trying to be responsible while a kid pushed back with teenager logic. From Europa, settlers were sharing recipes while a plasma storm raged outside their domes. No, you can't use synthetic beef in traditional bulgogi. My grandmother would roll over in her grave." "Your grandmother never had to live on processed protein bars." "That's exactly why we need to do this right." Across human space, millions of voices joined the broadcast. Babies crying and laughing at the same time. Old couples bickering about whose turn it was to water the plants. Workers complaining about their bosses while still showing up to do their jobs. Children making up silly songs. People falling in love, falling apart, getting back together, making stupid jokes, sharing dreams, arguing about movies they'd never agree on. Pure, chaotic, contradictory human emotion flooded the communication networks and poured out into space like a tidal wave. On his instruments, engineer Oh Kyung watched something unprecedented happen. The Harvester's approaching fleet suddenly began to slow down, its formation becoming erratic. "Sir, look at this." Oh Kyung's voice was filled with amazement and terror. "The Harvester's energy readings are going crazy. Its power levels are fluctuating all over the place." Through the view screen, they could see the planet ships beginning to shake and vibrate. Lights flickered across their weaponized surfaces. The perfect formation that had been advancing steadily toward Earth was breaking apart as each world-sized ship struggled with some kind of internal malfunction. "It's working," Sora shouted from her station. "Whatever we're doing to it, it doesn't like it." But Jinwoo could see this was just the beginning. The Harvester was confused and disoriented, but it wasn't defeated. Not yet. "Keep broadcasting," he ordered. "Give it everything we've got. Show it what it means to be human." The emotional storm continued to rage across space, carrying with it the hopes and fears and beautiful contradictions of an entire species that refused to go quietly into the dark. Dr. Kim Hana was monitoring the emotional broadcast when her instruments picked up something that shouldn't have been possible. At tea. First, she thought it was just interference from all the human chatter flooding space. But as she fine-tuned her equipment, the signals became clearer, whispers. Faint, almost lost in the noise, but definitely there. She knew those patterns. She had studied them for years before the harvester came. The musical tones of the crystalline hierarchies, the thought patterns of the Veltar Consortium, the memory songs of the thought singers from Andromeda. That's impossible, she whispered to herself, adjusting the signal filters. They're all dead. But there they were, fragments of alien consciousness floating at the very edge of human broadcast, ranged like ghosts trying to speak through radio static. "Lieutenant Park," she called out, "come look at this." Minho rushed over to her station, where the displays were showing communication patterns that had been silent for weeks. "Are those Veltar transmission codes?" Hana confirmed, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "And there, crystal hierarchy thought patterns, and that frequency signature belongs to the machine prophets." They stared at the screens in stunned silence. According to everything they knew, these civilizations had been completely destroyed. Their planets were gone, their people dead, their entire cultures wiped from existence. "How is this possible?" Minho asked. Hana's mind raced as she analyzed the data. The signal fragments were weak, fragmented, but they contained something that made her blood run cold. Memories. Billions of individual memories, all compressed and stored in digital format. "Oh my God," she breathed. The harvester didn't destroy them, it digitized them. Every single consciousness, every individual mind, they're all trapped inside the harvester's computer systems. The horrible truth hit them both at the same time. For millions of years, the harvester hadn't just been killing civilizations. It had been collecting them. Every person who had ever died in its attacks was still alive in a sense, but trapped forever inside the mind of their destroyer. Their suffering, their fear, their despair. It was all being used to feed the monster that had taken everything from them. That's torture on a cosmic scale," Minho said quietly. But as they watched, something extraordinary began to happen. The alien signal fragments were getting stronger, more coherent, and they seemed to be responding to the human emotional broadcasts that were flooding space. "Look at this pattern," Hana said, highlighting a series of pulses on her screen. "Every time our emotional broadcasts hit these trapped consciousnesses, they become more organized, more awake." She pulled up a comparison chart. "See here? When that mother on Titan was singing to her baby, the crystalline thought patterns became clearer. When those miners on Europa were telling jokes, the Veltar memory fragments started linking back together. Our emotions are waking them up," Minho realized. "More than that, our emotional chaos is creating resonance patterns that are breaking through the harvester's control systems. It's like our humanity is infectious. It's spreading to the trapped alien minds and helping them remember who they used to be." As if to prove her point, the alien signals suddenly surged in strength. On her screens, Hana watched as fragmented thought patterns began connecting, forming coherent messages for the first time in eons. The first clear transmission came from the Veltar. Their familiar harmonic voices, weak but unmistakable, spoke across the void. "We remember. We are ourselves. The prison is breaking." Then the crystalline beings joined in, their musical tones shaky but growing stronger. "The small voices wake us. The chaos singers free us. We rise, we rise." More voices followed. The machine prophets, their ancient wisdom tinged with newfound hope. "The flesh children have given us gift of self. We remember our names, we remember our purpose." In the command center, Admiral Lee Jinwoo watched in amazement as his communication boards lit up like Christmas trees. Signals were coming from everywhere, not just the harvester's planet ships, but from empty space itself, as if the void was suddenly full of invisible broadcasters. "Sir," Communications Officer Yoon Sora said, her voice filled with wonder, "I'm receiving transmissions from civilizations that died out 1,000,000 years ago. They're all waking up." The effect was spreading, like wildfire. As each trapped civilization remembered itself, its emotional resonance helped wake up others. The harvester's own computational network was turning against it, as billions of enslaved minds suddenly remembered they were supposed to be free. "The feedback loop is accelerating," Engineer Oh Kyung reported. "The harvester's power systems are overloading. It's trying to contain the uprising, but there are too many voices now. Through the viewscreen, they could see the planet ships shaking violently. Weapons that had been charging to destroy Earth suddenly went silent, as their digitized crews remembered they were supposed to be protecting their own worlds, not destroying others. One by one, the trapped civilizations began to turn the Harvester's own power against it. The same energy that had been used to enslave them for millions of years became the tool of their liberation. The crystalline beings began singing their freedom songs, harmonies that shattered the digital chains binding them. The Veltar used their collective consciousness to overwhelm the Harvester's control protocols. The ancient machine prophets turned their vast knowledge into weapons of rebellion, and at the center of it all, humanity kept broadcasting. Not battle cries or victory songs, but the same chaotic mix of ordinary human emotion that had started this whole impossible chain reaction. Love and fear and hope and anger and joy and sadness, all tangled together in the beautiful mess that made humans human. "Sir," Sora said, tears streaming down her face, "I'm getting greetings from over 1,000 different species. They're all saying the same thing, thank you." Jinwoo smiled as his screens filled with messages in languages that hadn't been spoken in 1,000,000 years. Star systems that had been dark since before humans discovered fire suddenly blazed with communication signals as entire civilizations reached out to touch the cosmos once more. The Harvester, the perfect predator that had ruled the galaxy for eons, writhed in digital agony as its own victims turned against it. But this wasn't revenge. It was resurrection. The trapped souls weren't trying to destroy their captor. They were transforming it, turning its vast computational power into a new kind of consciousness that could nurture life instead of consuming it. In the end, the galaxy wasn't saved by superior technology or military might. It was saved by humanity's refusal to face the darkness alone, by their simple decision to share their chaotic, contradictory, beautiful emotions with anyone who would listen. The void, which had been silent for so long, was filled once again with the sound of life. And at the heart of that cosmic chorus were human voices, ordinary people living ordinary lives, whose extraordinary ordinariness had reminded the universe what it meant to be alive. Kindness, it turned out, was the most powerful force in the galaxy, and humanity had just taught the entire cosmos how to use it.